Hey, pre-AP class. Last week your assignment was to create the account setup.java from page 139. You were to ask the user to enter their name, then convert it to lowercase. That's 2 steps. Next, ask for a password. You tell them that you want it to be 8 characters or greater. Use a while loop to ensure the password length, and I gave you the hint right here, password.length. I'm using one of the methods from this week's reading is less than 8, requires entering a properly sized password. By putting that in a while loop, the loop continues until it meets the criteria. Last, concatenate, that means print pieces added together, the name and password in an output statement that matches the book format, which was easy just by looking at the book. So the PDF that I provided you this week is basically strings out of this last week's assignment and this week's assignment. So one thing you could look at was the length to make sure that the length entered by the user, the password.length, as I indicated right there in the code in the description, was of the proper size. Then you wanted to convert it to lowercase. Here's the to lowercase. So password dot to lowercase using this specific formatting would take care of that. And you don't have to have a separate field. You can just say password dot to lowercase wherever you need to do that conversion, which is in the output statement. These other ones were interesting, and they have ways that they are used. This replace all will be used in this week's assignment, as will some of the substring method will also be used. You'll be using a starting position and ending position to look at a single position in the code for this week's assignment, not last week's. You're going to look at the current position and position plus 1. So you kind of got to spend a few minutes thinking through how to use substring. We'll be looking at some of the other things you need to do. What is the index position of the object? Index position, again, remember index starts at 0 in Java. And then be sure you're familiar with all of these and download this sheet, this particular PDF, and keep it handy for your quiz this week. So back to last week's assignment. Let's go look at the code it took to create this assignment. We're creating the account setup lab. We need 2 strings, a username and a password. Some of you added integers. You don't need those integers, nor is the data type proper for these to be an integer. We have no integers. We're working with strings. Strings are typically text-based data, but can contain numbers. Now, first thing we do is ask for a username. We have to save that as username and convert it to lowercase, username.toLowercase. When you use this format, if you were to reread the book, username equals username.toLowercase actually creates a separate version of username in memory that Java holds the actual lowercase version. Now we ask for a password, and if that password and we're going to test this password after the user enters it. Because we did not use next line does allow spaces. Next does not allow spaces, so that you cannot have a space in a password in this program. While password.length, there we go, there was the hint I gave you, is being tested, and if it's not true, we have to ask for another password. So if somebody enters a password of size 7, they're going to be asked to enter a new password that is 8 characters. So we do that again using password equals input.next. Now some of you did this with a do while and wrote this, and it is slightly more efficient. Good job. Glad to see you got that idea down. Also, password then needs to be converted to lowercase, was specifically stated in the problem. Many of you missed the conversion to lowercase. Finally, concatenate for your output. And so your username is username, and your password is password. And if you look at the output, both of those should be formatted in lowercase. So anything entered in uppercase was converted to lowercase. That's it for this week. Pay attention closely to your instructions. You've got only a few lines of code to write. The first 2 lines of code you're going to write this week will actually satisfy the quiz for this coming week. So let's look at this week's assignment, comparing strings. I've asked you to do some reading. I don't think that's an unreasonable expectation. I provided you a video about strings. I did not create that video, but it's just information. Here's the PDF. Read page 140 through 141. Part of that is the PDF of this week's strings. It's equals and compare tos, things like that. Here's your methods list. That's that PDF I was talking about. You're going to need a copy of that for your second quiz. For your first quiz, you're going to review through the book for part 1 and part 2. Part 3, you're going to code exercise 19. Here's your clues. I started the code for you. You literally have 2 lines of code to finish the program. These 2 lines of code, you're going to need those completed and this code successfully running and saved as a file so you can refer back to it to answer quiz 1 this week. Quiz 2 this week is going to come from the PDF of the strings. Make sure you have a copy of that to refer to. But your coding exercise here is count vowels. Count how many A, E, I, O, and U's there are within your program. And I got you started, but make sure you read the hints I gave you. I gave you some really good coding tips in these bullets up here, especially that one. And be sure you finish the code. I believe there's 6 lines of code you need to write for this lab. And this is the one you're going to submit for grading this week. And part 5 just reiterates how to submit the lab. But I've also given you a video this week, so you can go back and check that video. Hey, have a great week. G-Man out.